Hello, everybody. Welcome on the Innovation and Strategy blog. I'm Guillaume Villon de Benveniste, your host. And today, I'm happy to be joined by Harrie.
Hello, Guillaume.
Hi, Harrie. This is your second time on.
Yes, thank you for asking me back.
Well, that's correct. And today, last time we spoke about the difference between digital innovation and digital transformation.
Yep.
And today the idea is to focus on the topic of digital transformation as such.
Yep.
And maybe before we do that, could you perhaps introduce yourself?
Okay, well, I'm Harrie. I'm Irish, I guess. I think I am. I've been living in France all my adult life, which is how we met. I have been a management consultant for 20 odd years. More recently, moved toward digital transformation, having seen that, well, I've always been involved in transformation. So digital transformation was just the next thing. Very interested by the human side of digital transformation and why it works or doesn't work. Very happy to talk about some customer examples where people have asked us to be involved and help them transform on what I would consider, small little things that make a big difference.
Okay. And when we spoke, I was actually surprised to see that you have addressed many different functions in companies. So not just one function, like, for example, marketing or just R&D, but really a diversity of functions. And so
Absolutely.
To help our viewers make sense of that, I thought that we could ground our conversation on Michael Porter's generic value chain.
Okay.
I will not show it on the screen, but it will be on the blog in the article so that viewers can see it. But basically, just to summarize what it's all about, it's a representation of what companies do in terms of building products, manufacturing products. So there's a list of what are called discrete activities that go from inbound logistics, where you actually get the raw material, to operations, where you're building the product, to marketing and sales, and then to servicing the product to customers. Those sometimes are called the operational activities, and then there are a bunch of support functions that operate all along the value chain, and they include HR, R&D, everything that has to do with financing and procurement.
Okay.
So my understanding, Harrie, is that you had a case that you'd like to share on the topic of operations. Is that correct?
Well, I can give you an example. Yeah. When I talk about digital transformation, I think I go back a step and think, what do we mean? I mean, essentially, digital transformation is taking something that is done already, usually either manually with paper and pens, or most recent with most things is done somehow with Excel or Word documents, and people are just sharing stuff, and turning it into a kind of in our case, a web-based application where people are actually sharing stuff in the cloud, and they're going through hopefully a process. So in operations, a customer asked me to look at and to give them a solution to better manage how they share data with subcontractors. Subcontractors and their customers often they have to be really kind of tied together, but they're not on the same ERP systems. So how do they share information? And the customer I was working with had been doing it with Excel files, and we just put in an app that allowed basically the subcontractor was keying in data, and my customer was seeing the data real time. So how much of the work they had been done, they receive orders in the system, they declare how they're doing in the orders, they declare if they have quality problems, but all this in the system. And it replaced a lot of Excel files, a lot of emails, and a lot of stuff that got lost, basically.
Okay, so that's an example of how your technology helped to improve the flow of information between a supplier and your client.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you also had an example on how your client was talking to its clients with an example from marketing, if my understanding is correct.
Well, I think when people talk about digital transformation, they very often talk about e-commerce
Yep.
as being like they think digital transformation is a change in the relationship. I want to talk about something very different in the kind of more marketing space or marketing communication space. My customer wasn't Starbucks, but just imagine I was working with Starbucks, and there's a new Starbucks open just around the corner, and the corporate people want to know, did the people who did the development of the site, did they get it all right? Did they follow all the corporate guidelines? Is everything aligned with the right colors, the right wallpaper, the right carpet? Is everything done according to the standards? So we basically did an app that allows an auditor go in, take photos, comparing the photo to what they were supposed to see, tell them things comply, they don't comply, and then do a lovely report saying this new outlet is in compliance or not in compliance on these points, blah, 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 blah. Which is a very simple thing to do, and real-time information where in the past, the auditor would go in, take photos on his phone, he'd go back to his hotel, he'd put all the photos he'd somehow mass the photos into a Word document, and about 3 days later, a week later, he'd send the stuff on, and it was kind of just a very chunky process. Now it's just all done in real time.
So you've shortened the process by a factor of maybe 30?
We've shortened it in terms of time and having the report available. We've improved it because whereas before now they have photos that the people look at on the app, where before it would have been pages and pages. It was very difficult to see what was. So now they see a photo, they take a photo to see if they get the same thing. So it's much more intuitive as well, and it's quicker. The audit is done faster, and the customer gets the report faster. So yeah,
Okay.
Good example.
Great. So, and those are the examples that cover operational activities, and you also had examples on where you're helping support functions, and I believe that there's one on HR and one with R&D. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, the HR one is in France, and it's for people in France. They'll just find it funny. Holiday requests, asking an employee saying, "I want to go on holiday from this date to that date." Sending the request to the manager and being able to see the guy asking, saying, I have these many days left of my holiday, I'm using these days, and the system has to calculate it's bank holidays, it's weekends, and all this sort of stuff to make all the simple calculations. And when the manager receives the request, he can quickly see who else is on vacation, is on vacation at the same time, agree it, and send back the answer. All that, it's easy to do it in paper, and then people have to kind of open up Excel files and say who's already on holiday and all this sort of stuff. But this now is real time, and the data is stored, and it's all automatically sent on to the finance people, put it into the paychecks and all that sort of stuff. So everything can be done much more quickly and easily, and it's all recorded and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So very simple thing.
Right. And so what's interesting is how you've been able to interface the technology with a lot of other software that the company may use, like, for example, everything related to pay.
Yeah, of course.
And to taking days off and
all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And how about calendar? The fact that you would show on the calendar whether a person that's off is actually off on the calendar as well.
Well, that we haven't done, because actually interfacing with Outlook on calendars sounds easy to do,
but it's really hard.
But it actually is a nightmare. The other one that's even a bigger nightmare, and if somebody out there has a solution, I'm really interested, is how you can combine multiple contact lists, where each person has ownership of his contacts and his numbers and his email addresses of all his people he is, but that people share them in a way that the system manages it properly. And it's because that is a nightmare again. That is the worst nightmare, especially in where you have people talking to the same people and they don't want somebody else to automatically erase their data, but they want to know what the other person's doing.
Right.
Or, and that is nightmare. That's a lovely nightmare to solve one day.
Okay. Now, another project involved working with research and development.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
believe that had to do with project management.
Absolutely. And it was the customer was in the medical device space where they have a lot of regulatory stuff that they have to do. So it
So
would
what's an
actually,
example of medical devices?
well, I mean, like anything that is kind of going to be used in surgery or is going to be
Okay.
left in the body. So these are things that there's a lot of they go through they go through FDA or equivalent approvals, and so that whenever you do research and development in this sort of space, you have to be able to prove that you went through all the right quality checks and that before you actually put a product on the market, it is in compliance with all the rules and regulations. So it was about basic project management, which is where are we in terms of financing and money spending, where are we in terms of doing tasks, where are we in terms of managing risk, and then on top of that, do we have all the documentation for all the different quality steps that we had to go through? Did we get all the right approvals from all the right people? So if I take that sort of way, that sort of doing that in terms of digital transformation, everybody wants to do it in a different way. And there's no two companies who want to follow exactly the same rules. So it's always specific to the nature of the company. They can do it with Excel files and PDF files and all that sort of stuff. It's very easy to do, and it becomes document management, very complex.
Right.
Doing an app the way we do it means it's possible to do the app now and then keep on improving on it as people change the process. They're not stuck to a given process somebody else is imposing on them. So the advantage is you end up with something that is part of the how the company works,
Right.
and but it's not. It's they can then improve it themselves, and it's living.
Right.
It's not a kind of once in a 10-year project, and then everybody has to stick to it. So.
And when you started out this conversation, you mentioned that you were really interested in the human side of digital transformation. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, what I've seen and what I've learned is what I think I think users, people who are given IT systems, are make assumptions that the person in my shoes just cannot get his arms around, which is that what we give them, they have to use it as it is, and they're not allowed to really ask for changes, even though we tell them we can change it. It's easy. So I had an example where I was doing a system to help sales administration, and the person I was working with, they had a very clear idea of what they wanted, but they weren't telling me. They didn't know how to express it. So I did version 1, 2, 3, 4. And finally we got to a system. And between the verse 1 and the last one, there were lots of small little changes. For me, they were cosmetic, but for the user, they made the huge difference. And when we got to the final one, they were so happy to get the system that they had dreamed of in terms of detail that they became the most wonderful how can I say it, the wonderful supporter of the system. But it was just going through the process of allowing them really define what they wanted themselves.
Right.
And allowing them get to a point where they felt it was their system made all the difference. And in reality, they were very close. But
Right.
for the users, they were like, it was theirs at the end. And that is the real challenge, is to get the users really on board. And I think there've been study after study about change management, lots of stuff, but it really is about engagement and showing them that you actually listen to what they want and you do it. And you do it the way, in a way that they say it's theirs.
Right.
And I think old IT, what I call old IT, historical IT, the IT people were always thinking they knew better than the users what the user needed. And they were never able to get to that point where the user said, well, actually, I got what I wanted. Because the IT people just thought they knew better.
Right.
It's my kind of read on it.
Right.
So it's really getting them to a point where they think they've been heard and you've done as best a job you can for them. And that makes all the difference.
Okay. All right, we're going to leave it at that. So let me try to summarize what you've told us. You mentioned that digital transformation involves replacing paper processes with digital tools.
Absolutely.
That was the example of supplier contacting your supplier and sort of freeing the information flows. You also mentioned a similar process with checking on corporate branding in the case of the store, where with a phone you can ensure that the images, the colors are actually in tune with the corporate branding.
Absolutely.
Where in the past a similar process would have taken much longer with assume a traditional picture machine camera.
That's called a camera. Yes, I remember that word.
You're right.
Camera.
You're right. Yeah, I was like,
what are they? What were they? They were
Yeah.
before telephones. They had telephones.
And you also share the similar ideas in R&D and HR.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Harrie.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Guillaume.
And one last thing, you're going to be back on our great show.
Good.
To talk about your personal views on digital transformation in perhaps a more personal manner.
Okay.
And we'll also have that set up very soon.
Good. Thank you, Guillaume. It's been nice talking again. Speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.